All right, everybody, I'd like to welcome y'all to the Excel BI virtual chapter presented by PASS, the Professional Association of SQL Server. First thing we're going to do before we do the presentation is go through some slides about the PASS community. It is the May slide, but we're going to try to push it to June as much as we can here. So first thing they want to do is remind y'all by June 1st, you need to make sure all your mandatory fields are set up in the profile in order to be able to vote during elections for the board members. It's very important that you become a member, help vote, and help keep track of what's going on with the PASS community, because the PASS community is a volunteer organization and it depends on your volunteer work to help it keep going. So the more people we have involved, the better. So go to your PASS profile and make sure everything's update. You'll get a nice, pretty picture that's either you're eligible to vote or you're not eligible to vote. And if you want, the best thing about PASS is the summit. It's every year around October or November. This year it's towards the end of November in 2015. It's in Seattle. Right now, the registration cost is $17.95 for the 3 days. I didn't have the code available when I updated this slide, but we can give you $150 off if you email us at excelbivc@sequelpass.org, and I'll find that code, that complimentary code that you can use to register. There are plenty of virtual chapters for you to be able to visit. There's some that are more global and language specific, but then there's also some specific to maybe what you do at your company or that you're looking to move on to from your present job. So this is the Excel BI virtual chapter, and it's actually a business intelligence, business analytics, cloud, data architecture, and many, many others. If you visit the sequelpass.org site and go to virtual chapters, you'll see a listing of these, and also on the front page, it'll show you all the upcoming free presentations that are available to you, just like this one. I copied and pasted over the SQL Saturday list because they were all from May, but as you can see this weekend in Iowa City, Verna, and New York City, there are SQL Saturdays going on. Next weekend, Sri Lanka, Colorado Springs, a couple others, and also the week of the 13th, there's a couple. I will actually be at the Houston one, which is just about a 4 or 5 hour drive from Baton Rouge. There are volunteer opportunities. If you want to volunteer in all areas or any area of SQL Pass, go to the volunteer.sequelpass.org site. Once you log in, there'll be different selections and check boxes that you can add yourself to many, many volunteer opportunities. And I started doing this about 7 or 8 years ago, and it really has paid dividends in my career as well as networking with other SQL Server professionals. Please stay involved. The membership into SQL Pass is free. We're on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter, as well as a website. I'm going to go ahead and turn this presentation over to Steve as soon as I can make him presenter, and he will do his presentation for us.
All right, well, he's switching us. There we go. I'm going to switch this over now. You should see, let's just confirm we still got it. See the slide deck there, taking Excel dashboards next level.
Yes, I can see that. And Steve, you might want to remind them about the questions and answers.
Will do. All right. So this is a very fun presentation for me. It generally is very dynamic. So I am going to encourage you, and I'll segment this out to different groupings, to feel free to ask questions. Thomas will make sure I get the questions. I'll try to track the chat a little bit, but realistically, each tip or each topic, if I get a bunch of feedback saying, hey, we know that already, you're welcome to say, hey, we know that already. And if Tom says, hey, we got a bunch of people saying they already know it, then we'll do a quick check, and chances are we'll move to another topic. Basically, what I'm saying is I have a lot more content that can possibly fit into this 50-minute period. So I encourage you to do that. Now, the other thing is, as I go through each tip, we'll take questions for that tip while we're talking about it. As we move on to the next topic, Ideally, we'd like to have the questions focus on the next topic, and we'll handle them a topic at a time. And that'll allow us to demo and be relevant while we're in that topic. So as Thomas mentioned, my name is Steve Hughes. I'm an architect with Pragmatic Works. Been there for a little under a year now. Before that, I was with Magenic. Hopefully somebody's heard of me before then. Thomas said he had, so I think that's a good thing. All right, let's get going here. So, I will put this up at the end as well. The important parts here are how to get a hold of me. My picture, it doesn't matter that you know what I look like, but how to get a hold of me does. It will help you later. My blog, Data on Wheels, Twitter handle, Data on Wheels, you'll notice a theme. I used to be a data architect for transportation industry, so there we go. So as we move through this, my Twitter handle was generally a feed I use to let you know when I have a new blog post, that kind of thing. I do have an entire Excel BI tips series, which covers a lot of these topics, including very detailed step-by-step instructions how to take advantage of some of the capabilities of Excel. So I'll let you know a few of the ways to get a hold of me, and we'll move right into this. So Excel, I have a few slides. Bear with me. We'll get through them. I'm probably just going to roll right through the deck and come back and do demos because that's what this is about. So that means my deck is either not very large or I'm going to talk very fast. So we'll work through either one of those. Excel is just a spreadsheet. It's funny because the truth of the matter is, whether we like it or not, Excel is still the most used BI tool in the world. And every other BI tool is considered not very good unless it has the export to Excel button. So as you start thinking through what Excel is very much front and center on everything we do when it comes to BI, whether we like it or not. So I've been talking about a project I've been currently engaged in. It actually is 100% Excel-based, web parts, all that kind of stuff, Excel services inside of SharePoint, full dashboard capability, and we're going to walk through some of the lessons learned on that project today. Well, the other thing to notice is that it includes Power BI components and a lot of performance point functionality that got pushed to Excel 2013. Now, Microsoft's making a little switch with the new Power BI app, but the reality is Excel 2013 will not go away anytime soon, especially in enterprises. So Excel Services is the engine behind the engine. That allows us to actually share and distribute our dashboards and our reporting in SharePoint Office 365 and produce a portal experience that everyone is able to embrace and love because everyone loves SharePoint. Okay. Yeah, I can't hear the sarcasm or any snide remarks coming back at this point, but you get the point. So we need to understand that Excel is something that we care about and we want to actually learn how to use better. So these are some of the things that we can demo. So right now in the chat, if you're able to get to your chat window, these are some of the areas. If there's something of particular interest to you, and we get a lot of that back, so this is going to be the first challenge for Thomas today. If you want in particular to see something on here, please let him know. So I can talk about pivot tables, not Power Pivot, but pivot tables, pivot charts. Overlaying charts is one of the coolest features that I learned in this process. We will start out talking about slicers today, and unless you tell me otherwise, slicers are a lot more capable than people realize. We're going to talk about how to customize them, how to lock them down, how to help them become a central point of your dashboard. We can cover some functions as well. We can't cover all these pieces. These are just some examples of what we can cover, and if I hear feedback on what you want, great. If not, then we will go through my plan of attack and move from there.
All right, we have overlaying charts. Oh man, now they're all flowing in. Overlaying charts, user-based security, services and web parts, all of it, especially web parts, Power
Okay.
View, overlay, MDX cube functions, overlay, user-based security, Power View, and they're just pouring in.
All right, so cool. So it sounds like my biggest topic, if it sounds from what I'm hearing from you, is the
I think the overlay charts.
Overlay charts, and then talking about the Excel services and web parts, and then some MDX functions. So that's how we're going to roll this today. Hopefully that's stuff you've not seen before. And I'm going to do also speaker's choice because I want to talk a few minutes about slicers because people always think they know more than they do. on slicers, and I just want to walk through a couple slicer settings for you because it's something I think everyone should know when you talk slicers. So we're going to do slicers, overlay chart, securing web parts, and the MDX functions. All right. Sounds like fun. So let's see where we're at here. Yeah, so this is the part about Excel services. I'm going to look through what I have. Okay, so I'm going to talk through a couple things here real quick. No, I'm not. I'm going to go right to the demo. And that deck, if you have questions about it, I think you're going to find more value in the demo probably. All right. Let's see. Let's shrink this down a little bit. Can everybody see that okay? Because it turns out to be pretty big. I want to make sure that it shows up on everybody's screen okay. All right. I'm going to go with yes.
Yes, it looks good, Steve.
All right, cool. Yep, I just want to make sure because sometimes people's what they see is different than what I think they're seeing. All right, first of all, everything I'm going to do in the demo today is going to be, for the most part, is going to be based in analysis services, multidimensional backend, driving through an Excel spreadsheet, since that's the most common implementation to date. We won't look at Power Pivot and Power View. I'm glad that was brought up. Thomas and I were talking about this before the session. Please submit topics around Power BI that you're interested embedded in this to Thomas, to the email he mentioned for the virtual group, and we'll look for topics related to Power BI later. At this point, we are not going to use any Power BI tooling. This is an Excel dashboard only style demo, so let's roll. First thing I want to talk about, I did mention talking about slicers. Let's talk about the end game a little bit. When we talk about dashboarding in Excel, this is the end game. And by that I mean, when I look at this, let me go ahead and turn off the views here. I want you to be able to see what people will actually notice. And if we get rid of the ribbon, all of a sudden I have a dashboard that, depending on your level of understanding of what is in Excel, you may or may not know that this was built entirely in Excel. We have a chart, we have a slicer to the side here that allows us to dynamically change everything around. We have a chart that's overlaid here. This is actually two charts. And then we have a pivot table that's locked in place for our use. So we're going to talk through a few of these pieces today. This section here is driven entirely off of MDX cube functions. We'll talk about how we did that and some best practices around that. So let's start out breaking down this example here, and then we'll walk through. I've got a clean dashboard to show you how to create it from the ground up. So let's start there. The goal is to get back to that point. First thing, when you're working with data, in my case, I have an existing connection. A couple things I want to talk about. If you create a connection to a target, like in my case, I'm using that wonderful thing called an AdventureWorks database, you need to make sure that you have one connection, and really you only use that connection. So we're going to grab this connection here. Now we're going to start out by creating a Power Pivot report, or a pivot table. Too many power things, sorry everyone. So it comes up, I get this nice little pivot table. Hopefully everybody's familiar with what Cube lets us actually work directly in pivot tables, the sum functions and so on, and then we have dimensions and KPIs available to us as well. So there's a couple things the Cube does for us that helps us, and a few things that hurts. We'll walk through, and as I remember those things as we go along, we'll talk about it. So if we go back to our initial example, what we want to do is we want to look at married and single customers and based on their information, based on education. So in this case, we had sales by income as well, so let's start playing around. If you have questions related to what I'm currently showing, just fire that to Thomas and we'll go from there. All right, let's shrink that down so I can switch back and forth easily. All right, so step one. You'll notice on my design, and this is the best practice I encourage everyone to do, there is a data tab. Now, in typical use in Excel, this contains lots and lots of data, like a lot of data. In our scenario, this is a perfect place to put a pivot table and exploded pivot tables, or pivot tables have been converted to formulas in this case, because at the end of the day, nobody wants to see the data this way. This is so that we have reference points. In our dashboard, you'll see if I turn the formula bar back on, it's just referring to my data page. Why is this important? This is the clutter working space that we all need to have in every dashboard we create, because a dashboard should look pretty and no one should ever know what happened in the background. That is what our data tab is for. Because we have this data tab, we're able to hide, and you don't have to hide this when you deploy it to Excel. I'll show you how to make this to Excel services in SharePoint. You can make this disappear, and we'll talk about how to do that in a minute. So focusing first on the use of slicers and so on. So let's start out by creating a quick little pivot table that, well, first of all, never create anything in A1. So we're going to move this to get us out of the way right away. Go to Move Pivot Table, pick a new location. It doesn't really matter. This is my Data tab after all, so I just want to put it in a random place. Rename this to Data. Done. Okay, so let's go grab a nice metric. Let's look at customer count from this scenario. So here's my count of customers, and I want to add some slicers. Let's look at this by, we're just going to do some customer demographics, and we can say, hey, show me customers by commute distance. I can right-click here, I can add a slicer. You can also go into Insert Slicer up here, which gives you the whole same list, and you can pick what you like to use as a slicer. In my scenario, I will be honest, I am a right-click junkie. So for me, if I can right-click and get to it, I am going to. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to say, hey, give me a slicer set based on this. And now we've got the slicer. So you can see right here, I have a beautiful slicer set up, and I can go and it does what I want for metrics. Now, I said I wanted to give you some slicer tips, and this is what I want to show you. If you are working with slicers, there are a number of things you need to be aware of. One, a slicer will move if I insert a row. Really, it will. See how it moved right there? I've inserted a row above it. It is kind of anchored right there on that corner. You can't really see the anchor. It doesn't show you. If you're creating a dashboard, that is unacceptable. Because what I want to do is we're going to go ahead and build out this new dashboard completely different than everything else we've done. This is my dashboard. We're going to rename this to dashboard so we can start building one. On my dashboard, I want to actually take this slicer. I'm going to cut it and bring it on over to my other page, and I'm going to make it a part of a filter I want to add over here. And so it drops in there. Great, that's lovely, I like it. Let's go back in here. We're gonna choose a color scheme today. Nobody likes orange. Let's do green today. So I'm doing a green-gray color scheme. I feel good about it, looks nice. It shows my selection. You notice no data on here. It is still connected over on this page, because if we look at the pivot table, we can see that we're connected by looking at the filter connections, and it will name, it'll give me the name of the object that's there and where it's at. And we can also go over here and we can see on slicers, on report connections. You can connect a slicer across everything that you want to. So you can use one slicer across multiple sheets. You can create one sheet with nothing but slicers and have a master filter page. I've seen that been used before as well. Just a number of options. But what I really want to talk to you about is a couple important things. Here's where you fix your column, your height, and your width. These actually will change the sizes depending on what you're trying to do. You may say, why is this important? Well, let's go ahead and increase this size. Why would I increase this size? When I deploy this to SharePoint, it's now usable on iPad or a Surface or any of those other tools, right? And I have really big fingers. So this is now a touch-friendly slicer that I can use, and I can go in there and grab it. Now, as you get in there, you say, well, the font's not the greatest. That's true. You can change everything by going into slicer styles and do a new slicer style. Now, if you do this, I'd recommend creating an Excel template so you can retain your style, because it talks about every piece of it that's there. Now, I'm not going to make those changes because we don't have time to go through all that, but you can change color, background, all these pieces. Another thing to be aware of, users don't often know what these are for, so you can change the caption to select commute distance, and then maybe do something like this, unselect choices with a little arrow, and there you have it. You say, well, what did that matter? Well, now, if I choose to do this a little differently, let's widen this out. Hey, can I unselect choices? Let's make this 2 columns and bring this up. So now I've just given the users self-service instructions. Hey, if you want to unselect those, click there. And so I can unselect my choices. So use the caption to your advantage. Now let's look at settings real quick. Inside of settings, you want to make sure that you look at what you got. Now, there's a couple pieces that are important. This is very, very important. This name to use in formulas. As we get into formulas, this becomes exceptionally important to make sure our formulas are applying the proper slicers. So we will pay attention to that later. We have a header, and it's displayed. Now, here are in Excel 2010, visually indicate and show items with no data, show items that have no data last. These options are available in 2010. Hide items with no data is not. This is significantly important because when I hide items with no data, that means that when I filter these out, the list comes off my list. Now, in my case, I'm actually choosing something where I would actually not want that. I would like to visually indicate, and frankly, I don't even want to show items with no data last. I want to always be sorted in this order, but I want it to gray out when no data is available because this is kind of that type of slicer. Now, if we go back, so if I go ahead and keep that setting, I go back and say, well, what is something that would change a lot? And something where we may or may not have data would be in, let's see here. Maybe do we have a state field? We do. So let's make a state slicer. Let's bring that over to the dashboard. So we drop this slicer in here right underneath like we want. And we go, all right, so show me state slicers, and do a quick on this one. Get all these wonderful columns. And right now you can see that down at the bottom, they're all missing. Now, in this example, I don't actually want to see them. If they don't have data, I don't care about them. So we go back to the slicer items, hide items with no data, and now my list is substantially shorter. If you have a large list like the customer names or employee names and you want to hide those employees that don't have a reference point, that is how you take care of that. That is a 2013 new feature. The last piece I want to talk about is we need to talk about how to set a couple other settings. Now, slicer settings opens our dialog, but that's not what I want to do. What I want to do is I want to go to size and properties because this is so intuitive. You would have guessed right away that I would get a nice little slicer format button over here, which allows me to do other things, including move and size with cells, move but don't size with cells, or what I want to do is don't move or size with cells. So now, if I insert a row here, it moved this one because I didn't lock it in, but it doesn't move this one anymore. And so you can now see that this little feature right here is one of the most important features that exist on slicers that you need to be aware of. All right, enough about slicers. We're going to go and create a overlaid chart. Let's get rid of this. So we've got a customer count here, so we need to, if we want to compare that customer count and we want to look at, let's do, got metrics. So if we would like to see the average sales amount based on the count of customers and as an overlay, and say we wanted to bring in the date, which is a common one, or actually let's do this by income because I want to show this with a non-day specific item. So as you can see here, of course, average sales amount is see, that doesn't actually take in yearly, so let's get rid of that one. Watch because I'm in sales summary. I need to go up to the right measure group, which doesn't work because I'm taking off count. So let's go back and look at this again. We're going to pull off internet sales. We're going to do internet average sales amount, and we're going to compare that to, let's see. Can we compare that to count? We might be able to compare that to count. To order count. There we go. So we're going to see the number of orders versus the average sales amount. So what we're going to do is we want to actually overlay the average sales amount over the top of order count and make the order count a bar chart. We want to do this by showing these guys on our y-axis. So let's go to doing that. So first things first, I'm going to leave that up there so we have it. We're going to go ahead and go to data, existing connection, and we're going to go into AdventureWorks, which is there already. We're going to grab that connection again. We're going to create a new pivot chart. We're going to say OK. And in my pivot chart First thing we want to do is we want to create a bar chart with average sales amount. So I'm going to throw average sales amount, nice little bar chart there, and then I want to put in my customer demographics, we're going to pull in the yearly income. Okay, so now you can see the average sale amount goes up based on income, something that we would expect. But what does that mean per order? So what we want to do is we'll overlay the kind of orders across the top of this. So as you can see right now, I have a nice little chart with these values. So we're going to create the second chart that we want to do, which is the same concept. We're going to do this again, open, create a new pivot table report. Nope, sorry, pivot chart, my bad. Throw it there. In this case, we are going to grab the customer count, or do we grab order count? I think we meant to do order count. Let's grab order count, and then go down and grab our dimension again, which is going to show us we want to see the same thing. Okay, so let me go ahead and expand this a little bit. I have two charts. They actually have very different granularity and different purposes, right? So we have an average dollar amount, and we have a total count. These are different things. Now, typically, one of the things I want you to keep in mind, one of the things that commonly use this for is for percentage overlays. I'll show you an example of a percentage overlay because it actually shows how I can show a percentage of usage and show a trend across it. In this case, we're going to show the trend this way. All right, so first thing we need to do is figure out which one to do a bar chart. We want to do this one here as a line chart, so we're going to change this chart type right now. We're going to go up into Design, change chart type. We are going to pick a line chart. There we go, dots, because I like markers on mine, and so on. So now I have a line chart. This is awesome. Now what's really relevant to me, so this is my order count. You know, I wonder if we were to have a little more fun here. Let's throw a legend in here. So now we got an order count by gender as well. So there's not a lot of difference. I like data that doesn't have much difference. Let's try this again. Let's try homeowner. Maybe that one's a little better. Wrong spot, folks. There we go. Two line graph shows us by orders by homeowner versus non-homeowner. Great. So now I have these two charts, and I need to overlay them. And what I want to do is I want to take this chart, and I want it to sit on top of the here and show me that information. Now, to be fair, while it is possible to do some of this with the combo charts available from Excel, every time you make a change in a combo chart, it resets to a single chart, and it's very, very annoying. This will get you out of that mode as well as allow you to customize your look and feel of your chart. So we're gonna work this chart out first. So first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna give this thing a good title. Call it average sales by order count and gender. Average sales. Let's see. What are we actually grabbing? We're actually grabbing salary. Really bad name, folks, I know. It just gives us an opportunity to get in here. Salary-based average sales by order, count, and gender, because we need a really big, long title that nobody really will read anyways after the first time we just deploy this. So Shift-Enter will get that new line in there for you if you're curious. All right, so now I got this information. It made a beautiful chart. It shrunk it down. You'll notice that these two are not the same size, so we got some work to do in front of us. So first thing I want to do is like, okay, so I like what I have here. Let's format this. We can go out here and you can do this a couple ways. If you just do this Format Axis button, it's going to slide out an option here for me, and I can go in and say, okay, so based on what I see here, we really know that, you know, we got the ranges in that we want. We'll let it do its magic. Number, I want to make this a currency value, so I can now see this with only one, with no decimal places, and there we go. All right, I said no, oh, hello. There we go. So we got our nice little line, you know, values in here. This one here, this is formatted based on what it came out of, so there's nothing I can really do about that. That's a yearly income range. All right, so I've got my chart. This format chart area, if you're not familiar with this chart area, there are options here all the time. So if you right-click anything, and you see format, it will open up a area like this and allow you to do a large amount of customization on whatever you're working with. Okay, so we got this. First thing, we got to get rid of those little annoying buttons. So field buttons need to go away. Thank you very much. Gone. Awesome. So my field buttons are now gone. And now I want to get rid of my field buttons down here. Field buttons are gone. Now I don't want a title. I'm going to close the pivot chart area because I won't need that for a bit. I don't want a title down here, but I also need to figure out what this, I want to see if I got a label here. So let me go and see if I can grab a label. I don't need a border. What I do want to do though, I want to put this on the bottom. Not good. Left. We'll go left. Also not good. Right in the heart of everything we're doing. All right, let's, don't like where I'm putting these, so we're going to go with, let's try top right. Top right's a good spot. I like that one. All right, so then we need, do a label in there. Biggest way to do, easiest way to do a label is we're going to shrink this guy down a little bit, and then we're going to add ourselves a text box in there. Or maybe not. Maybe not today. Let's just do this today. Come on, grab it. There we go. So put this in our upper corner. Done. All right. So we know what those are. We'll deal with some labeling, additional labeling here in a second. What you really care about is when I lay this over the top. Oh, wait, that doesn't work. All right. So on formatting, here's how we're going to start working this. We are in the format chart area. We have fill. If we go to no fill, look at that. You'll notice that you can see right through it. That's awesome. We also need to turn the grid lines off. So we can use the plus symbol here. We can say, please don't show me any grid lines. And for now, let's turn the legend off until we're for sure we want to use that actually. So let's just turn that legend off. So okay, so we got that. Now we're going to overlay, oops, grab the wrong thing. Control Z is your friend, so it's okay. So I grab my chart, I overlay it and go, okay, that's close, but not quite. So there's a few issues. One, I have overlapping sides over here. This is still kind of ugly, and I got to get rid of the bottom axis argument. So let's go down here. For the next thing we're going to do is we're just going to select that and choose delete. It is gone now. Awesome. Now, let's all look really closely and see. Now, where would you switch this at? Because I want to have it on both sides. Oh, total has to go away here too, because we really don't need that. So let's get rid of our legend. There we go. All right, so I need the total. I need to have my order counts to go to the other side. Otherwise, they sit on top of the other ones. Okay, so we're in the format chart area. So let's go grab what's the format axis. Where would you put this? Oh, the questions of the day. I do this because I really enjoy this part so much. Let's see, labels. Oh, that's where, nope, yes. Yes. Okay, so it says put them next to axis. Well, that's not what I want to do. So as a matter of trial and error, take notes. This is the most important thing you're going to learn about this process. If I go high, it flips it on the other side. You're right, that totally made sense. Or not at all. That would be one of those things that took me a very long time to find. Now you can go low and I think it throws it on the other side. See, look how that worked. I know that there is a reason for this, and there's probably a logical way that this works and makes sense to someone at Microsoft. It just makes no sense to me, and maybe some chart designer would love to send me a note saying, well, Steve, you know how this works, and then go from there. Okay, we have one other issue here. We do still have a border, so let's make sure we get rid of the border. Okay, so this is my chart now, which is almost impossible to select. So now we bring this up into here, and what we want to do is we want to have the dots line up with the center points of these. So we scroll this bad boy over, and that still didn't quite do what I wanted to do, so we go in here. And now it looks a little ugly because I'm outside the other border, so let's do a little massaging on the border here. So we're going to make this chart wider, and we're going to go in here to the middle, and we're going to shrink this down. And we're going to grab this chart again, and I want to shrink this chart down a little bit because I really want to compress it to actually give me some value, which I'm still not there. Let's compress it a little bit more. And looks like we need to make it a little wider so the dots line up correctly. Probably should change that color. Let's go to design, change colors. Let's just use a yellow variation. Hello. I want both of you to be yellow. Why are both of you? Let's change it again. Here, let's go over dashboard, come back. You know, it's not playing nice with me. This is a typical Excel fun that we can have for all of us together. So we're gonna, it will probably change eventually. If it doesn't change and it doesn't do what you want it to do, or you want to do really a totally custom scheme, you can actually click on the series. As long as you have the format window open, you can go over here and say, hey, I want the line to be this color. There we go. And I need the markers to be the same color. Markers have a few more options, like you have to deal with the boundary too. And now you have an overlaid chart. That's really all there is to it. You can add other labels if you need to. You can shrink things down. The key is now you actually have two charts to work with. So I'm actually on the data page, so I'm on the wrong page. So let's go ahead and grab that one and this one, and we're going to cut this out. We're going to bring that over here to my beautiful place, and we're going to put this in my charts. We're going to select it still. So we're going to drag that there. We need to move that over. I need to move this over. And what you'll notice right away is that it is not affecting my chart, so I need to go into Slicer, Report Connections, grab my two charts. You can name your charts. If you're working on a really complex dashboard, you should name charts and pivot tables, just for the record, because it will make your life easier. All right, say OK. It's going to requery my database. Did I not? Hold on. Did I pick something that doesn't work with this data? That is always a possibility. See, it's making a liar out of me today. It should be working. Slicer options, report connections. Maybe if I pick the right slicer. There we go. So what happens when you pick the wrong slicer? So you can see the people who have 0 to 1 mile commute tend to have a be in the lower income bracket and are and tend to order more, but their overall price point is a little bit less. So as you get into here, you can start to learn things about your data this way. You can see my dots are still off. Have questions or about ready to move to the next section here?
Yeah, Steve, there's 3 questions about why not to use cell A1.
Okay, so I don't use cell A1, typically speaking, because I want to always have the ability to insert a row or a column in that position without affecting my current content. So I have actually, from a report design standpoint, a lot of people do this number right here where it's equal size and they'll put nothing in that spot. So if I decide I need to add a title to my dashboard, like right now, I can go in here and say, hey, insert. And if I'm working with pivot tables or whatever, it gives me that space to work with. And we've just found it to be, as a general rule, it's a lot safer to leave that space open. The other thing we typically do is we try to keep all of our columns and rows very similar sizes. So as we move stuff around, we don't see an impact. But that's typically, we try to stay out of A1. Because if you want to insert a column or do some messing around with your sizing, it's nice to have basically a border around your dashboard.
Okay, there's 3 other ones that are commenting about using a combo chart with a secondary axis and why you didn't use that.
Fairly simple reason. Well, maybe it's better to show than to do that. So let's create the same chart using a combo chart to the other point. Let's do that. Right now I have full flexibility, just for the sake of argument. I can actually shrink this down. If I want to see the trending like this, I have a lot of flexibility in how I'm going to do my display. Once I go to combo chart, I'm at the liberty of whatever happens and on the Microsoft tooling and the automation part of it. So let's go ahead and create a new a quick chart on this one. In this case, we'll grab all the same metrics. So we need to field list back. We're grabbing, let's see, order count and average sales price. Is that right? Yes. So now I've got those two measures in because that's what we have to do for this. And then we go down and grab gender. And we grab yearly income. Okay, so that's what our metrics look like right now. I'm going to go ahead and close that. So in order to do this as a combo chart, we go into design and we change this chart type. We're going to say I want to do a combo chart. And you can see right away I can go, okay, I want to make my clustered column. Make this my clustered column. Make this a clustered column. Make this a marks and put this on the secondary axis and say okay. All right. So here's a couple things. I don't want internet average sales split out by male and female because I don't care about that. I just want to see the total sales. And you can see right away that the way this is set up, I don't really get that option. That's one of the things I don't like about it. So let's turn off the, let's make these things look as close to possible, the same possible. Let's turn the field buttons off. We can obviously add a chart and so on. So we get here, so you can see right away we're stuck with it. It assumes that we're going to get the same gradient. There's no way to take that out of the filter because I actually have separate filters running these two charts above that I'm doing the combo on. And now if I want to make a change, so let's say I don't want this to be male and female anymore. So let's go grab the field list. Let's change this. Let's overlay something different. I want to overlay for my demographics. I want to let's do male and female because it was homeowner before, right? So let's do that. Okay, so now I have the homeowner overlay done. I've done nothing else. I don't have to worry about there's two options. I'm good to go. Maybe that's not such a good one. Let's do education. Let's see, why am I? Oh, because it's in the wrong spot. So here I'm throwing in the legend. It's like, why is that making that my life difficult? So okay, so now I have the education bar. So I've just added, hey, this is the amount of education they have on the side, and so we just go from there. Now I'd have to go check and see why my legend's coming up wrong, but it gives you the change. Now let's do the same thing down here. In this chart, what I want to do is I'll swap gender out for, we're going to take gender away. First thing you notice is no longer a combo chart. So now I'm going to go and grab my education, throw that into legend. And now you notice right away, it didn't remember that I had a combo chart. So now I have to go reset the combo chart in order to work with this. This became one of the bigger frustrations when working with combo charts. I could never get it to quite do what I wanted. So even though it says, and you'll notice it says it's a combo chart, but in order to fix this, I've got to go and, which button do I have to fix this on? Nope, it's not that one. I think I have to go and basically pick my chart type again. Oh, I can't remember how to do this now.
Hey, Steve?
Yeah.
You might want to move on to the next topic because you got about
Yep.
15 minutes left and you probably have only time for one more topic. There was a couple other questions. One was a comment that the high and low references the end of the x-axis, and another one was, can you lock the position of the chart?
Yes, you can lock the position of the chart. So we'll show that real quick. Thanks for the feedback on the other high and low of the axis. That actually makes sense. If you go into the chart here and you right click on the chart, and what you're going to go to is pivot chart options, layout and format. There's a few things to take in here. See where it says auto fit columns and width update? That's not the one. Display. Where do they have it at? I know it's here really. That's the pivot table one, my bad. So pivot table, that's where you do that. Pivot chart, You go to chart options, size and position, and don't move or size with cells. And that'll lock that in place. So hopefully that helps there. I will move on to the next one. And I'm actually going to show the demo on the other pieces that I already built, except for I want to do this right here. We're going to show you how to use MDX. So I'm going to move on. Hopefully this gives you an understanding of why I'm very frustrated using this chart type, and this became a lifesaver for us. We could do a lot. It's a lot more flexible. You can actually do a lot more charting than we even show here. There's just a lot available to you. All right. We're going to jump over here. So let's just say, I don't know if I like these fields. Let's grab a different field. Let's do customer count. I don't really care about those ranges, so let's pick a different demographic. And really what we're going to do is we're going to do gender here, and we'll pull out income. And what we want to do is really show how many male customers we have and how many female customers we have. Okay, so at a simple point, we have this data. I can drop it in as a table, but what I really want to do is what we show over here. I want to create this type of box. And I'm not going to be able to create the whole thing for us today, so that I do illustrate how to do this, but I want to show you really quickly how to take care of this. So we're sitting in this chart, or this table, and we go out to Pivot Tools, and we look at OLAP Tools here in the top. And this is going to be the favorite button of all time. And I'm going to show you, it's going to say Convert to Formulas. Now, what has happened right then is we no longer have a pivot table. Now, this is really an important thing to note. When you start doing this, the first thing you do is what I just did, which is, hey, that's cool. Now, how do I add another thing in here? You have to actually know the formula. Oh, I don't want to know the formula. So what you do is you create a pivot table that has most of what you want in it, and then you do what I just did, which was take out, to convert it to formulas. So let's walk through the formulas here for a minute. We'll start at the value. The cube value, actually all the cube functionality, cube value, cube set, cube measure, they all require you to include the connection. This becomes really important because if you want to put more than one type of data next to each other coming from multiple cubes or multiple connections, you can do that here. So the fact of the matter is by pulling cube value, I'm actually pulling my connection first. The really cool part is that you will see that it references these two cells, and we'll look at those cells. These are members. And if you're familiar with MDX, you're basically creating a tuple. And it says, hey, include customer count by female, show me the value here. But it also takes into account our slicers. So remember when I said it was really important to understand what your slicer's formula name was? This is why. Because we can actually do some very creative things. I'm going to show you this really quick. So let's just say I want to do custom, by, what was my slicer options here? By state and by commute distance. And all filter and no filter. Let's just do that. Okay, so if I'm working in this scenario, there's a couple things to be aware of. Cube member is exactly what it sounds like. Now at this point, MDX comes into play. So I can tell that, it says measures. I've worked on MDX for a long time. So measures.customer count is the actual name of the measure. I go to female, it's customer, the gender attribute, and the attribute reference that I'm using, which is female, or in this case, male, or in this case, all customers. Now that is a key thing to understand. It thinks that grand total is all customers. If that's not what you want, you can actually change it here where you couldn't really easily change it in a pivot table. So now I've got these values. So I'm just going to copy this guy over. If I go up into customer count and customer count, these are both still right. This is awesome. Look at how I'm doing this. And then I go and grab these two values. These two values. I'm not going to worry about grand total for now. And I want to verify that I'm actually selecting the right one. Okay, dollar signs are important in Excel. So if you've used Excel before, you need to keep your dollar signs in mind. Dollar signs fix the point that what can change and what can't. So in this case, I can move across the rows, but keep that tight and the other way on the columns. So so now I've gotten the right function, but what I want to do by state is I don't want to actually care about the commute distance. So I take it out. Now that's a different measurement. And if I do the same thing here, if I take out the province information, I'm now getting it by province. And if I go over here and say, you know, I don't want any filter at all because I want to compare this directly. Okay, I made those changes. I want to apply those changes to the next row, black cross. Why not go ahead and go to the grand total? All right, now you can see that it brought all these down. The black cross honors what we're pointing out from cells. We have that information. This is where the real power comes in, because now I have this data, and this is why you have a data tab, because now I can go over here. We're going to do something really ugly. And we're going to go down here in this no man's land. Actually, let's put it out here by the slicer so we can see it work. I want to merge a cell, so let's do a merge and center on that cell. I want to increase its font size. I want to give it a label, so I'm going to merge and center up here. I'm going to call this all female customers. Now I can go over here. I can make this equal to all female customers, which is that one right there. Boom. Centered in the box. Now I can put a heavy border and so on. You can do all the typical formatting in Excel. This is where you need to watch your cells, your rows, your column sizes, and you'll have to make sure you're paying attention to that when you do design. At that point, you're dependent on these sizes. That's why we often make sure we leave these all the same. The result can be something like this. It's where we have married customers. We have the total married customers and the total married customers with post-high school education. How do we do that? We actually went in here and you can see that these are referencing by education. So we're taking the slicer education, but in this case, we're actually selecting post-high school, which is its own measure. So if I say, hey, I want to see my own measure, and I created essentially a cube set. Let's expand this out because I wanted to see the set of people who have the following attributes as true. So if their education is bachelor's or graduate degree or partial college or post, this is my post-high school set. I've now created a set that allows me to distinguish this, and I'm using that as opposed to a slicer. In this case, I'm using a slicer for education. In this case, it will ignore the slicer. So if we go back, you can see as we pick the slicer, the numbers here change, but neither the numbers below change. So that gives you some definitive options around the value of actually using cube values, cube sets. You can actually count sets within the cube. There's a cube set count function as well that can be used. Cube value and cube member are the key features that are used. I have 5 minutes left. We're going to have to move security and Excel services to another session, so we're going to have me back, Thomas.
Yep, no doubt about that. There's a couple questions. The cube function does a string search and analysis service. Is anything you do to improve the performance of that function or force it to select single correct value and not search?
Not that I'm aware of. It's all how Excel builds the MDX query in the background.
All right. Will slicers still work on the cube functions?
Yes, that's what, as long as you put the slicer name in, like in this case right here where I have slicer education, you will be able to use it in conjunction with that.
All right, and if running out of time, can you quickly show the web parts in SharePoint?
Sure can. So this is an example of a dashboard I deployed for another demo. This is actually all an Excel web part right here. And if I go to, see if I can get the page design, edit page, loading. So this is an Excel web access web part. And a couple things that are important in my last few minutes. Let's see here. So let me drop back into Excel. I want to show you a couple things for deployment that you need to know. So this is an example of what I deployed in the File tab. Yep. There's a section called Browser View Options. Extremely important. You can see here that it can highlight any item in the workbook, including a named range. If you choose a named range, it will actually hide the scroll bars as opposed to if you drop just a flat Excel, the whole Excel chart or the whole Excel item in. You have the option to do the entire workbook. If you do the entire workbook, you will always have scroll bars on the bottom and on the right, inside the web part. So if you want to avoid those and make it look a little cleaner, that's how you do that. You do a range. The range is sized out, and you size your web part area to cover the range, and it's there. Those of you who want to know about security, yeah, we definitely want to bring that up in a different session, and maybe some more Excel services functionality that's available to help you to publish Excel in a meaningful way. So.
Great, and we'll go ahead and close there. It looks like we're done with the questions. There might be one or two comments that are in there. Some thank yous coming across. Just a reminder, this session is being recorded. It'll be uploaded to, we have a YouTube channel for the Excel BI virtual chapter. The last one was without sound, and we apologize for that. I'm working with headquarters to make sure that the chapter dashboard doesn't do that again to us. So hopefully this one goes up with the sound. There's some more details on contacting Steve. I'm sure if you go to his website or email him, he'll be sure to answer any other questions. One of the questions was, would you make that Excel spreadsheet available to them to review?
And that is one of the things I'm working on, is how do I get a few of those out there. So
Okay.
I do have step-by-step on everything you saw is available in my blog post on my Excel BI tips.
All right, so yeah, everybody just keep in touch on his website as well as the Excel BI virtual chapter. There we have meetings scheduled every month. We're trying to bring on another individual to help volunteer for this chapter to help do more than one a month. We'll get Steve back as soon as we can and get in the schedule. There is a sessions already scheduled for June, July, and August, but we'll try to slip some more in there. Again, we want to thank Steve for his time. And he works for a company called Pragmatic Works, and I know they do have the was it something on Tuesdays, or they do
Yeah.
presentations as well. So it's not just us that you can go watch these presentations for. Go ahead, Steve.
Nope, I was going to say you're right. We have training on Tuesdays, and that's a wide variety of data and other related topics. So.
Well, please visit Pragmatic Works to see if there's anything out there already recorded that you might be interested in. Again, thank you for joining us. Check our meeting archives in about a week. You should get a link to the recording, and keep in touch with sequelpass.org, and we'll have more sessions for y'all. Thank you very much. Thanks, Steve.
Thanks everyone.